What's up, everybody? This is your boy Tech G back with another video to help you successfully pass the CompTIA Network Plus N10-007 certification. So let's get into it. In this video, you're going to learn about authentication and access controls such as Radius, TACACS Plus, Kerberos, SSO, local authentication, LDAP, certificates, auditing and logging, multi-factor authentication, and various access controls such as 802.1x, Knack, port security, MAC filtering, captive portals, and access control lists. So let's talk about Radius, and this stands for Remote Authentication Dial-In User Service. And this is a network protocol operating on ports 1812 and 1813 that provides centralized authentication, authorization, and accounting management for users who connect and use a network service. Users who want access to a network or an online service can contact a Radius server and provide a username and password to attempt to gain access. The server would then authenticate or decline access to the network or service. TACACS Plus, and this stands for Terminal Access Controller Access Control System, and this refers to a family of related protocols handling protocols for remote authentication and related services for network access control through a centralized server. The original TACACS protocol, which dates back to 1984, was used for communicating with an authentication server, which is common in older Unix networks. A user already authenticated via TACACS into the network was automatically logged into other resources in the system as well. TACACS in its original form is not very secure and has been updated and replaced by TACACS Plus, which is a proprietary form by Cisco Systems. Let's talk about Kerberos. So this is a computer network authentication protocol that works on the basis of tickets to allow nodes communicating over a non-secure network to prove their identity to one another in a secure manner. Kerberos was designed primarily for a client-server model to provide mutual authentication where both the user and server verify each other's identity. The client authenticates itself to the authentication server, which forwards the username to a key distribution center. The KDC issues a ticket granting ticket, or TGT, which is time-stamped and encrypts it using the ticket granting service's secret key and returns the encrypted result to the user's workstation. This is done infrequently, typically at user login. The TGT expires at some point, although it may be transparently renewed by the user's session manager while they are logged in. Kerberos also uses UDP port 88 by default. Single sign-on, or SSO, and this is a property of access control of multiple related yet independent software systems. Some SSO implementations require the user to sign in just once, whereas others can detect the correct credentials when the user connects and performs a silent or promptless login. And some of the benefits and risks of SSO include the following. So some of the benefits are users have fewer username and password combinations to remember. Users get to work faster because they spend less time entering passwords. Users don't need to ask for assistance from help desk employees because of lost passwords. And SSO makes managing the security profiles of individual users easier. And some of the risks are as follows. A compromised SSO password puts all resources accessible with SSO at risk. A disgruntled employee with SSO access can cause problems with all resources accessible via SSO. And a lost or forgotten SSO password prevents the employee from doing any work until a new password is set up. Next, we have local authentication, and this refers to the network device authenticating the user with a database of user account information stored on the device itself. This is often an important fallback method of authentication should another external method fail. Then we have LDAP. This stands for Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, and this is an open, vendor-neutral, industry-standard application for accessing and maintaining distributed directory information services over an IP network. Domain directory services play an important role in developing intranet and internet applications by allowing the sharing of information about users, systems, network services, and applications throughout the network. As such, directory services may provide any organized set of records, often with a hierarchical structure such as that of a corporate email directory, and Microsoft often refers to this as directory services, and LDAP, it uses port 389. Next, we have certificates. So in cryptography, a certificate authority, also known as a CA, this is an entity that issues digital certificates. A digital certificate certifies the ownership of a public key by the named subjects of the certificate. This allows others or relying parties to rely upon signatures or on assertions made about the private key that corresponds to the certified public key. A CA acts as a trusted third party, trusted by both the subject, who is the owner of the certificate, and by the party relying upon the certificate. Trusted certificates can be used to create secure connections to a server via the internet. A certificate is essential in order to circumvent a malicious party which happens to be on the route to a target server, which acts as if it were the target. Such a scenario is commonly referred to as man-in-the-middle attacks. The client uses the CA certificate to authenticate the CA signature on the server certificate as part of the authorizations before launching a secure connection. Auditing and logging. So network auditing, this is the process of mapping and inventorying your network in terms of hardware and software. It's a fairly complex task that involves manually identifying network elements. In some cases, network auditing tools can provide automation support to identify the devices and services connected to the network. In addition to hardware and software, auditing should include security documentation, such as user accounts and groups, as well as permissions. A network log is typically a file that contains a record of events that occurred in an application. It contains the records of user and process access calls to objects, attempts to authentication, and other activities. Multifactor authentication. This is an authentication method in which a computer user is granted access only after successfully presenting two or more pieces of evidence or factors to an authentication mechanism. Typically, multi-factor authentication works with some combination of the following, such as what the user knows, such as a password or a PIN, what the user has, a smart card or a fob, what the user is, biometric data, something the user does, such as handwriting or a signature, and where the user is, either a trusted or an untrusted location. Let's talk about some access controls, and the first one is 802.1x. So IEEE 802.1x, this is a port-based network access control. It provides authentication mechanisms to devices wishing to attach to a LAN or a wireless LAN. 802.1x authentication involves three parties. You have a supplicant, an authenticator, and an authentication server. The supplicant is a client device, such as a laptop, that wishes to attach to the LAN or the wireless LAN. The term supplicant is also used interchangeably to refer to the software running on the client that provides credentials to the authenticator. The authenticator is a network device that provides a data link between the client and the network and can allow or block network traffic between the two, such as Ethernet switch or wireless access point. And the authentication server is typically a trusted server that can receive and respond to requests for network access and can tell the authenticator if the connection is to be allowed, and various settings that should apply to the client's connection or setting. Authentication servers typically run software supporting the Radius and EAP protocols. In some cases, the authentication server software may be running on the authenticator's hardware. Next, we have Knack, or Network Access Control. So Knack, this is an approach to computer security that attempts to unify endpoint security technologies such as antivirus, host intrusion prevention, and vulnerability assessment, user or system authentication, and network security enforcement. Knack uses a set of protocols to define and implement a policy that describes how to secure access to network nodes by devices when they initially attempt to access the network. Knack might integrate the automatic remediation process, such as fixing non-compliant nodes before allowing access into the network system, allowing the network infrastructure such as routers, switches, and firewalls to work together with back-office servers and end-user computing equipment to ensure the information system is operating securely before interoperability is allowed. And a basic form of Knack is the 802.1x standard. Port security. So by default, all interfaces on a switch are turned on. That means that an attacker could connect to a network through a wall socket and potentially threaten the network. If you know which devices will be connected to which ports, a network admin can implement port security. By using port security, a network admin can associate specific MAC addresses with the interface, which can prevent an attacker from connecting his device. This way, an admin can restrict access to an interface so that only the authorized devices use it. If an unauthorized device is connected, an admin can decide what action the switch is to take. For example, discarding the traffic, traffic and shutting down the port. MAC filtering. So MAC, which stands for Media Access Control, MAC filtering refers to a security access control method whereby the MAC address assigned to each network card is used to determine access to the network. MAC addresses are uniquely assigned to each card, so using MAC filtering on a network permits and denies network access to specific devices through the use of blacklists and whitelists. While MAC filtering does give a network some additional protection, it can be circumvented by using a packet analyzer to find a valid MAC address and then using MAC spoofing software to access the network using that MAC address because MAC addresses are not encrypted. Next, we have Captive Portal, and this is a web page access with a web browser that is displayed to newly connected users of Wi-Fi or a wired network before they are granted broader access to network resources. Captive portals are commonly used to present a landing or login page, which may require authentication, payment, acceptance of an end-user license agreement, acceptable use policy, survey completion, or other valid credentials that both the host and user agree to adhere to. Captive portals are used for a broad range of mobile and pedestrian broadband services, including cable and commercially provided Wi-Fi and home hotspots. A captive portal can also be used to provide access to enterprise or residential wired networks, such as apartment houses, hotel rooms, and business centers. A captive portal is not a secure connection. However, if the terms of service listed are enforced by network configuration settings, for example, settings that block the use of a keyboard logger or remote control apps, then this will make it slightly more secure than an open network. And then we have an access control list. So an ACL, this is a list of permissions associated with a system resource or object. An ACL specifies which users or system processes are granted access to objects, as well as what operations are allowed on given objects. And there are two types of ACLs. The first one is a file system ACL, and this filters access to files and or directories. File system ACLs tell operating systems which users can access the system and what privileges the users are allowed. Then you have a networking ACL, and this filters access to the network. Networking ACLs tell routers and switches which type of traffic can access the network and which activity is allowed. All right, so that is my quick class on network authentication and access controls, where we talked about things such as Radius, TACACS Plus, Kerberos, SSO, local authentication, LDAP, certificates, auditing and logging, multi-factor authentication, and various access controls such as 802.1x, Knack, port security, MAC filtering, captive portal, and access control lists. Now, if you felt like you've gotten something valuable out of this information, go ahead and hit the like button, share button, drop a comment, but most importantly, subscribe to this channel. Also, go check out my website, Technology G, so that you can get read up on the latest and greatest to help you successfully pass the CompTIA Network Plus N10-007 certification. And until next video, ladies and gentlemen, peace.